Late at night, the elevator was clearly empty, but John insisted it was full. A chill ran down my spine, and I turned to look at him.
Where do you see people? Are you sure you're not mistaken?
You don't see all those people? Let's let them go first. They're all staring at us.
I felt utterly absurd. To prove I was perfectly normal, I stepped into the elevator. However, the next moment, the elevator beeped, signaling it was overloaded. I froze in place, my other foot hovering just above the elevator floor. Terrified, I stared at the empty elevator, imagining a crowd watching me, perhaps even discussing why I was still trying to get in. But I couldn't see them or hear their voices. My heart felt like it was about to leap out of my throat. At that moment, John hugged me from behind and pulled me back, waving at the elevator.
Sorry, everyone, you go ahead.
Honey, are you under too much stress lately? Is your condition acting up again?
Yes, I had a history of mental illness. It started after a car accident that took my parents' lives. Overwhelmed by grief, I constantly felt their presence around me. A doctor diagnosed me with a mental disorder, and it took a long time to recover. But this time was completely different. I clearly saw no one, yet John said the elevator was full. Watching the elevator doors close and the floor numbers decrease, I turned and threw myself into John's arms.
Why can you see people, but I can't? Are we haunted?
Don't say that. There's no such thing as ghosts. You're just stressed because we haven't been able to conceive. It's making your old condition flare up. Relax, and you'll be fine in a while.
We've been married for 5 years, and both of us aren't getting any younger. The fact that we haven't had any luck with children has indeed made me anxious. But I've never heard of anxiety causing someone to see, or not see, people. Even if my condition relapsed, I should be seeing people others can't, like my deceased parents. However, John clearly didn't believe me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I no longer dared to take the elevator or go out for a late-night snack. I insisted on going home, and John agreed. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of being in the elevator, hearing the beeping sound of it being overloaded, even though it was empty. The next day, after John left for work, I groggily got out of bed. I opened the door and glanced at the tightly shut elevator. I didn't dare to take it again and chose to use the stairs. We live on the 17th floor, so even going down took quite a while. After leaving the building, I went straight to the security booth and requested to see the surveillance footage. As a resident, the security chief, Mike, readily agreed.
The elevator camera in Building 5 malfunctioned last night. It's our fault, sorry about that.
Malfunctioned? How could it be such a coincidence? I asked to check the footage from other buildings, and it turned out that all the other cameras were working fine. Instantly, I recalled various ghost stories I'd heard before, where spirits could disrupt electronic devices. Even though it was broad daylight and the temperature was pleasant, I broke out in a cold sweat. Leaving the security booth, Emily walked back in a daze. However, when she reached the building and looked up at the towering structure, she couldn't bring herself to take a single step inside.
Maybe it's an old ailment flaring up. Perhaps I should go to the hospital.
She comforted herself as she turned and walked towards the exit of the complex. At the gate, Emily took out her phone to call a cab, but just then, a taxi with its green light on, indicating it was available, drove up to her. Feeling lucky, she raised her hand to hail it, and the taxi slowly pulled up beside her. She opened the back door, ready to get in, when the driver asked,
"Where are you two headed?"
Emily froze.
Two? I was clearly alone. Where did the second person come from?
She glanced over her shoulder and felt as if someone was watching her, but she couldn't see anyone. Recalling last night's experience, she didn't ask any questions this time. She stepped back from the taxi and closed the door.
Sorry, I just remembered I left the gas on at home. I need to go back and turn it off.
Without waiting for the driver's response, she turned and ran back home. Compared to sitting in the back of a taxi with something she couldn't see, home felt much safer, as long as she avoided the elevator. Emily ran back home as fast as she could, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Leaning against the door, she slid down, her legs weak from fear. After taking several deep breaths, she finally had the strength to pull out her phone and call John. She explained everything that had happened and then cried.
John, please come home and be with me.
Emily, you must be hearing things because you were scared last night. I'm with an important client right now. If this deal goes through, we could make tens of thousands. Just stay home for now, and I'll come back as soon as I can, okay?
John worked as a sales representative for an elevator company. Since elevators are high-ticket items and clients usually don't buy just one, he didn't have many clients, but as the saying goes, one big sale can last you half a year.
All right then.
Good girl, love you.
He said before hanging up. Emily knew John didn't believe her, but being alone at home was too frightening. So, she called her best friend, Sarah, and asked her to come over. Sarah had been her friend for many years and was also good friends with John. In fact, Emily met John through Sarah. Before long, there was a knock at the door. Emily quickly got up to open it and immediately asked,
Sarah, did you encounter anything strange while taking the elevator up here?
No, not at all. Why do you ask?
I had a really strange experience. The taxi driver asked where we were headed, even though I was alone. It freaked me out.
That sounds creepy. Maybe you should see a doctor, just to be sure nothing's wrong.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Thanks for coming over, Sarah. I feel better with you here.
With Sarah by her side, Emily felt a bit more at ease, though the unsettling experience still lingered in her mind. Just now on the phone, I only told Sarah about the strange incident that happened while taking a taxi, not about the peculiar elevator event last night. This way, Sarah would take the elevator upstairs. I hoped to verify through Sarah's experience whether there was indeed an issue with the elevator on my floor.
Everything seems normal. What kind of eerie things could happen in an elevator?
I didn't tell her about what happened last night, otherwise, she would blame me. I just said I was being paranoid. With Sarah's company and comfort, my nervousness gradually eased. A few hours later, I saw Sarah off and bravely took the elevator with her. During the ride, I kept my eyes tightly shut. Fortunately, nothing unusual happened until I saw Sarah off downstairs. It was only then that I secretly breathed a sigh of relief.
Are you still feeling guilty about that car accident years ago that caused so many casualties? Maybe that's why you're having hallucinations and hearing things. Don't overthink it, it wasn't your fault. After all, your parents also passed away because of it.
Listening to Sarah's words, I felt a stir in my heart. 10 years ago, in that car accident, the private car my dad was driving collided with a bus. The bus swerved to avoid the collision and fell off an overpass, resulting in many passenger fatalities. The accident mainly happened because my dad was distracted while driving. Afterward, the families of the deceased caused a scene at my parents' funeral. Although I was saddened by my parents' deaths, I also felt guilty towards those people and the deceased passengers. Considering the recent events, I thought Sarah made sense, and the gloom in my heart dissipated quite a bit. After bidding farewell to Sarah, I mustered the courage to take the elevator upstairs to completely overcome my fear. The elevator stopped on the second floor. I was puzzled. Elevators in residential buildings usually pick up passengers on the way down. Why did it stop on the way up? But I didn't think much of it, assuming it was a rare occurrence. However, when the elevator doors opened, I waited for a while, but no one got on. Strange, did they take another elevator? Shaking my head, I dismissed the minor incident. But then, the elevator stopped on the third floor as well, and again, no one got on when the doors opened. Fourth floor, fifth floor, sixth floor, seventh floor. It was the same on every floor. I started to panic. Once or twice could be a coincidence, but every single time, that was a problem. Could it be that someone, or rather something, got on, but I couldn't see it? Thinking of this, I instantly got goosebumps. I wanted to run out of the elevator but was too scared to move. When the elevator finally reached the 17th floor, I gathered my courage and was about to step out and run home. But just as I stepped out, I heard the elevator's overload alarm beep again. My eyes widened. The experiences from last night and today's taxi ride flooded my mind. My other foot felt glued to the ground, unable to lift. The elevator had a capacity of 17 people, and it was overloaded on the 17th floor. This meant that something had gotten on at each floor, even on the first floor, but I hadn't seen a single person. Suddenly, I remembered the car accident years ago. 17 passengers had died, matching this number exactly. Could it be that was it because the people who perished in that accident were targeting only me and not others? Is it true that grievances have specific targets?
With this thought, I rushed out of the elevator at the fastest speed, ran back home, and locked the door. But that wasn't enough. I dashed into the bedroom, locked the bedroom door, and then entered the bathroom, locking that door as well.
3 layers of doors finally gave me a semblance of security. I sat on the toilet, gasping for breath, still shaken. Were those people here to seek retribution from me?
Instinctively, I took out my phone to call John, but remembering how he didn't believe me when I called him in the morning, I gave up. I sat there, dazed, losing track of time.
I don't know how long had passed when suddenly, my phone rang. The abrupt sound startled me. It was a call from John. I eagerly answered the call, but before I could start crying, John spoke first.
Honey, why did you lock the door? Open up for me.
John was already off work? I glanced at the time on my phone and was surprised to find it was already 6:30 p.m. John usually finished work at 6 p.m. In my days, half the day had passed.
I unlocked the doors one by one from the bathroom to the front door. The moment I saw John, I threw myself into his arms, crying and recounting the day's events.
When there's no one to rely on, you have to be strong, but when there's someone to lean on, you often show your most vulnerable side.
You're just too anxious lately, so your old issues are acting up. There's no such thing as ghosts in this world. If there were, why didn't they come for you back then? Why wait until now? Don't you think?
Indeed, if there really were ghosts, why would they wait until today to appear? John's comfort was effective. I began to doubt whether I was overthinking things, wondering if the elevator had malfunctioned, causing today's incident.
After dinner, while taking a walk downstairs, I purposely went to the security office and recounted my experience, asking if there was any malfunction with the elevator in Building 5.
The head of security, Mike, immediately contacted the maintenance technician to check. However, the results showed that the elevator was functioning normally. This result hit me hard, almost shattering the sanity I had just regained. Was it really ghosts, or was I having a mental relapse? Either possibility was hard to accept.
Emily, I think you're really not doing well lately. How about I take you to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow? We can't go on like this.
The hospital? Hearing those words, I immediately recalled the taxi ride from this morning and quickly shook my head. No, I don't want to go to the hospital, no.
I hurried back home, hid in the bedroom, and shut the door. I felt that only home was safe. As long as I stayed inside, I wouldn't be haunted. No matter how much John tried to persuade me, I refused to step outside.
For the next few days, I stayed home, and John bought groceries every morning. Fortunately, nothing strange happened during those days. Home was indeed safe, and my previously tense nerves relaxed a bit. Maybe those unsettling things had left? After being cooped up at home for several days, I felt quite bored, so I decided to go out for a walk. Peeking through the peephole to make sure everything was normal, I cautiously opened the door and took my first step outside. Nothing happened. Feeling relieved, I was about to close the door when a casual glance out of the corner of my eye made me freeze. On the white wall to the left of my front door were 4 blood-red characters.
Blood for blood.
The strokes of the word blood were chaotic, exuding sheer madness. I could almost smell the pungent scent of blood. They were back, indeed. They had returned to seek retribution from me. I stumbled back into the house in a frenzy, barely managing to shut the door before I couldn't hold back any longer and vomited, emptying my stomach of everything I had eaten that morning.
I shouldn't have gone out. I deeply regretted my recklessness. After cleaning up the mess, I began searching online for ways to ward off evil spirits. Even though I felt guilty about their passing, I would never surrender when my life was at stake.
During this time, I heard a piercing sound outside the door, as if something was scratching at it, trying to get in. Fortunately, after a while, the sound stopped, as if they had given up. In my heightened state of fear, John's knock on the door startled me.
After confirming through the peephole that it was indeed John, I opened the locked door, pulled him inside, and quickly shut and locked it again.
What's with all the caution?
I was furious. Do you think this is a joke? Didn't you see the blood on the left wall?
Blood? What blood? I didn't see any blood.
The words blood for blood, I suspect they were written in human blood. I could even smell it.
There's nothing there. The left wall is clean. If you don't believe me, I can show you.
John's expression didn't seem deceitful. Hesitantly, I followed him outside. But when I looked at the spot where I had seen the blood earlier, the wall was spotless. Not a trace of blood or even dirt. I rubbed my eyes instinctively, but when I opened them again, the wall was still clean. Could it be that my mind was playing tricks on me? Were the blood words a hallucination? Was the scratching sound a figment of my imagination?
Strange, why are there so many scratch marks on the door? I didn't notice them earlier.
I turned stiffly, and a chill ran down my spine. The door was covered in white scratch marks, as if something had clawed at it.
Emily hurriedly brought John back home and recounted everything that had happened today. She insisted that he buy those protective charms tomorrow since it was the weekend.
John, you have to believe me. We need those protective charms. Please, get them tomorrow.
Emily, you're just too stressed. There's no such thing as ghosts. It must be some mischievous kid. I'll stake out by the door tomorrow and catch him to give you some peace of mind.
Emily didn't say anything and just kept staring at John.
All right, all right. I'll get the charms tomorrow.
Only then did Emily smile. With the solution in sight, she felt much calmer and slept soundly that night.
The next morning, Emily woke up at 8 o'clock, and John was nowhere to be seen. He must have gone out to buy the charms.
Thinking the problem would soon be solved, she lazily got out of bed and walked into the bathroom to freshen up. However, the next moment, she was stunned.
What? What is this?
On the bathroom mirror, there were 4 bloody words, blood for blood. The blood even seemed to spread along the mirror like the tendrils of a demon, as if it were alive.
Weren't they supposed to be unable to get in?
Emily's mind went blank. She felt like everything in the house, towels, toothbrushes, and so on, had come to life and was coming at her, trying to harm her.
Stay away from me.
With a loud scream, Emily lost her last shred of sanity and began to frantically swing her arms, knocking everything she could see to the ground. From the bathroom to the bedroom, kitchen, and living room, she destroyed everything in her path. Suddenly, she heard the sound of the door opening, as if something had come in. She turned to look and saw John running towards her with a worried expression.
No, he's not John. He's one of those spirits in disguise, here to harm me.
Emily grabbed a broom and started hitting the fake John with all her might.
Get away from me. Why come back to torment me after passing away?
To her surprise, fake John actually retreated, and his arm showed signs of injury.
Ha! Don't bother pretending. Do you think you can fool me like this?
Emily continued to hit him. During this time, John took out his phone and made a call. Soon, a group of people in white coats rushed into the house.
See, he really was a spirit in disguise. Unable to beat me, he called for reinforcements.
Emily resisted with all her might, but she was outnumbered and eventually subdued, pinned against the wall. One of the people in white coats took out a syringe and injected something into her. The next moment, her consciousness began to fade.
Do spirits use anesthetics too?
Before Emily completely lost consciousness, that final thought lingered in her mind. In the chaos of the living room, a woman nestled in a man's arms spoke tenderly.
John, you've been through so much, taking all those hits from that woman.
It's all right. As long as we can get her admitted to a mental institution, I can manage the inheritance left by her parents as her guardian. Then we can be together openly and rightfully. It's all worth it.
John held Sarah's shoulder, comforting her.
Yes, but Emily is really naive and easy to deceive. She actually believes that good things will always come her way. First, she meets a close confidant, and then she finds a man who understands her.
Sarah smirked, her tone dripping with sarcasm.
Of course, you understand her. After all, I told you every little detail about her preferences and personality.
She is indeed naive and quite annoying, always overly sensitive, getting upset over trivial matters, and giving the silent treatment. Unlike you, who are so adorable.
John lifted Sarah's chin with one hand. They kissed passionately and soon found themselves entangled on the sofa. If Emily were here at this moment, she would be utterly shocked, for the 2 people entwined on her sofa were none other than her best friend Sarah and her husband John. My name is John. Sarah, my childhood friend and girlfriend, has always been by my side.
10 years ago, a tragic car accident took the lives of both my parents and Sarah's parents. Miraculously, Sarah and I survived thanks to our parents' desperate efforts to protect us.
When we woke up in the hospital and learned about our parents' passing, we vowed to seek justice.
After some investigation, we discovered that the couple responsible for the accident had also passed away, leaving behind their daughter, Emily.
Despite this, the pain of losing our loved ones needed an outlet. So, we turned our attention to Emily.
At that time, Emily was in a vulnerable state, having just lost her parents.
John, using our similar experiences as a pretext, I'll intentionally approach her, offer support, and quickly gain her trust.
That's a good plan, Sarah. Emily will soon regard you as her closest friend.
As Sarah learned more about Emily's personality and preferences, she shared all this information with me.
John, I have arranged for Emily to meet you during an outing. Armed with prior knowledge about her, make a deliberate effort to connect with her.
Hi, Emily. It's nice to finally meet you. Sarah has spoken so much about you.
I've never met a man who understands me so well. I think I might be falling for him.
I reciprocated her feelings at the right moment, and soon, Emily and I became a couple.
Initially, Sarah and I planned for me to abandon Emily after gaining her trust, causing her immense emotional pain. However,
upon discovering the substantial inheritance Emily's parents had left her, I couldn't help but feel tempted.
Sarah, what if I marry Emily to gain access to her inheritance?
No, John. That's not part of the plan.
Sarah, think about our future. We could have a promising life.
After some persuasion, Sarah agreed on one condition.
You cannot have children with her, John.
I readily agreed, and after our marriage, I secretly added a slow-acting substance to Emily's meals, rendering her unable to conceive. Poor Emily thought I was being considerate by cooking for her often.
As for the inheritance, our initial plan was to stage an accident to eliminate Emily. However, after considering various scenarios, we realized that either I would be put at risk or we might leave traces that could lead the police to us. Perfect crimes are not easy to execute.
Ultimately, we decided to exploit Emily's history of mental health issues, driving her to a breakdown and having her committed to a psychiatric hospital, achieving the same result.
Being an elevator salesman, I had a thorough understanding of elevator mechanics.
I manipulated the elevator in Building 5 to malfunction at opportune moments. For instance, it would emit an overload warning whenever someone entered, or it would open and close on every floor even when empty, pushing Emily's mental state to the brink.
I will intentionally remind Emily of past events, making her associate the number 17 with ghosts seeking revenge.
I also tampered with the elevator's surveillance system to prevent Emily from suspecting me.
The taxi Emily hailed that day was driven by a driver I had bribed with $1,000 to wait at the entrance and say, "Where to, ladies?" upon seeing Emily. Though the driver knew my intention was to scare her, he agreed without hesitation. The bloodstains on the wall at the entrance were written with pig's blood. After scaring Emily back home, Sarah and I cleaned it up and repainted the wall. The scratches on the door were also fabricated to ensure the already terrified Emily wouldn't dare to leave her home.
Throughout this process, I refrained from creating any supernatural occurrences inside the house, making Emily believe that ghosts couldn't enter. Then, when she was least expecting it, we delivered a final, terrifying blow, successfully driving her to madness, causing her to attack anyone she encountered.
Naturally, in such a state. After Emily was admitted to the psychiatric hospital, Sarah and I no longer had to sneak around. We spent our days indulging in intimate activities, marking every corner of the house with traces of our affection. This indulgent lifestyle continued for 3 or 4 days. Eventually, I began to feel lightheaded even while walking. Sarah and I decided to go out for a stroll. After a shared bath, we dressed up, but just as I was about to turn the door handle, there was a knock at the door.
Did you order takeout or buy something online?
No, I didn't.
That was strange. I hadn't ordered anything either. Who could it be? Peering through the peephole, I saw a delivery man holding an envelope. Finding it odd, I didn't open the door immediately but asked through the door.
Who are you? I haven't ordered anything.
Friendly, it's from the court.
The court? What could the court be sending me? Driven by curiosity, I opened the door, signed for the delivery, and found inside a document labeled Divorce Proceedings.
Whispering, divorce proceedings? Emily is in a psychiatric hospital. Who is filing for divorce?
To my shock, the plaintiff's name was clearly written as Emily. I quickly skimmed through the document and found that Emily's grounds for divorce were infidelity and an attempt to harm her to seize her assets.
Serious, Sarah, we need to go to the hospital right now.
Stunned, Sarah and I lost all interest in going out and headed straight to the psychiatric hospital where Emily was staying. As soon as we met, before I could speak, Emily smiled and spoke first.
Bitter, you finally came. Did the summons interrupt your fun?
Trying to salvage the situation, Emily, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Why are you filing for divorce? And what infidelity? When have I ever wronged you?
Standing by the window, Emily smiled bitterly and turned the laptop on her bed towards me. The screen was playing a video. I looked closely and saw that it was a recording of Sarah and me in an intimate moment.
Stunned, you?
She had installed a hidden camera in the house, which meant she had known about my relationship with Sarah all along.
Bitter, yes, I knew about you too long ago. You won't get a penny from me, you despicable pair.
Emily's voice wavers with the weight of her story, the betrayal still raw.
My name is Emily. After my parents passed away, I met my best friend, Sarah. Through Sarah, I was introduced to John, the man I fell deeply in love with. We quickly got married, and our life together was blissful.
Emily's life seemed perfect, her happiness unshakable.
I thought my life had reached its peak and that good fortune would always follow me. However, life dealt me a harsh blow.
Her tone shifts as she recalls the moment her world began to crumble.
By chance, I discovered through a tracking app installed on my husband's phone that he wasn't at work as he had claimed. A woman's intuition told me something was wrong with John.
Following the navigation, Emily arrived at a hotel where John was.
My first reaction was that he was being unfaithful. But before I could confront him, I saw John and Sarah walking out of the hotel hand in hand, gazing at each other lovingly like a couple.
The betrayal by the two people closest to her was unbearable.
They were the ones I trusted the most, and it was even harder to forgive. I didn't know when they had started their relationship, whether it was before I met John or after we got married. But I was determined to gather evidence of John's infidelity and make sure he left with nothing.
Emily tried to follow them, but they were extremely cautious.
Several times I tried to follow them, but they always managed to evade me, and I almost got caught myself. I wanted to divorce John as soon as possible, but without solid evidence of his infidelity, I was stuck in a state of anxiety.
Emily, are you okay? You seem anxious lately.
John thought my anxiety was due to our inability to conceive a child. This anxiety persisted until the day John blatantly lied to my face.
Emily had a good idea of his intentions.
If I had only suspected before, the subsequent events confirmed my suspicions, especially when Sarah deliberately mentioned the car accident before she left.
They wanted to drive her insane to take over the inheritance her parents left her.
After confirming my suspicions, I didn't confront them immediately. Instead, I installed hidden cameras in various corners of our home.
Emily played along with John's act.
When I saw the writing in blood on the bathroom mirror, I pretended to lose my mind at the perfect moment, allowing John to have me committed to a mental hospital.
Once they thought they had achieved their goal, John and Sarah let their guard down.
They engaged in their illicit activities in my home, revealing their plans in their conversations. All of this was captured by the cameras I had installed.
Emily forced herself to watch the disgusting footage and discovered an even more revolting secret.
My entire relationship with John, from meeting to falling in love, had been part of their scheme. Sarah had approached me intentionally to exact revenge. The reason I couldn't conceive was because John had been drugging me, and they had even considered ending my life.
With this knowledge, Emily felt no guilt about kicking John out and sending both him and Sarah to prison.
John and Sarah, you are hereby sentenced to prison for your crimes.
A few days later in court, John and Sarah cried and begged for Emily's forgiveness.
Emily, please forgive us. We were wrong.
We are so sorry. Please, have mercy.
Forgiveness? If you do something wrong, you deserve to be punished.
And with that, Emily walked